사랑 표현법을 담은 곡입니다.
동시에 느낄 수 있는 곡인데요.
흘러가던 내 목소린 널 입술.
뮤직.
뮤직.
Coming up on Arirang News. As ties between Seoul and Tokyo start to improve, South Korea is now back on Japan's list of preferred trading partners. Tokyo today revised a rule on this, about 4 years after a trade dispute was triggered by a ruling on wartime forced labor compensation in 2018. Looking back on the recent trips to France and Vietnam, President Yoon says his focus on sales diplomacy has helped attract large investments. He also says the government will continue to provide the necessary support for businesses so that they can operate as they wish. Wagner Group's chief Yevgeny Prigozhin breaks his silence to defend the march towards Moscow over the weekend, saying that the move was because of an injustice, not to overthrow the Russian government. And reports say his private jet has landed in Belarus. Good evening, it's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. We start with news on Seoul's relations with Tokyo as South Korea is now back on Japan's list of preferred trading partners, 4 years after its removal. The change will take effect next month, and this is expected to boost trade between the two countries. Our business correspondent Shin-Young starts us off.
It's taken about 4 years for the trade dispute between South Korea and Japan to be resolved. According to Seoul's Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy, the country will be back on Tokyo's whitelist of trading partners for the first time since 2019. On Tuesday, the Japanese Trade Ministry decided to reinstate South Korea as a Group A or whitelist nation, which will take effect starting July 21st, giving Seoul benefits from simplified export procedures. Back in July 2019, Japan placed export restrictions on 3 critical industrial materials used by South Korean companies to manufacture chips and displays following a ruling in South Korea regarding reparations for wartime forced labor victims. It also removed Seoul from its whitelist, triggering a strong backlash. In response, South Korea filed a complaint to the WTO alleging discriminatory actions contrary to the world body's rules. The latest decision comes amid a move to improve bilateral economic relations. Following a summit between South Korea and Japan in March, Tokyo lifted export restrictions, prompting Seoul to respond by dropping its WTO complaint and placing Japan back on its whitelist. After Tokyo's decision on Seoul's trade status, procedural convenience is expected to be enhanced for Japanese companies exporting strategic items to South Korea. Group A countries are also immune from a catch-all regulation, a screening system for exports of parts and materials that could be used for military purposes. Seoul's Trade Ministry welcomed the move, saying that trust between the two countries in export controls has been completely recovered. It also added that it will cooperate with Tokyo on other bilateral and multilateral export control issues. Meanwhile, South Korean companies anticipate a positive impact on supply chain stability, particularly in the chip industry. They also expect the resolution of uncertainty in the economic relationship between Seoul and Tokyo, leading to an expansion of exchanges between the two countries. On the other hand, some expect that restoration to the whitelist will have little or no significant impact on the industry, as the country had already diversified its supply chains in response to Japan's export restrictions. Shin-Young, Arirang News.
And following the news, Seoul's top office has welcomed Japan's decision to reinstate South Korea on its whitelist of trusted trading partners. The presidential office on Tuesday highlighted that this marks the first time in 4 years that the two countries have both lifted export curbs. It said that the decision shows bilateral trust between Seoul and Tokyo, following a series of summits between President Yoon and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. The presidential office also added that further cooperation and exchange programs are expected between the two countries, with a more simplified process in trade. facilitating a business-friendly environment through cutting red tape and ramping up diplomacy. That's according to President Yoon today as he underscored the gains from his recent sales diplomacy in France and Vietnam. Our top office correspondent Kim Do-yeon covers his remarks.
President Yoon Suk-yeol looked back on his trips to Paris and Hanoi last week and said his role as the nation's #1 salesman is paying off. Speaking on Tuesday in a live public address, Yoon cited the $940 million investment from European companies during his visit to Paris, as well as the 111 MOUs signed between Vietnam and South Korea.
글로벌 복합 위기를 극복하고 대외 의존도가 높은 우리 경제의 성장을 이어가기 위해 그동안 대한민국 영업사원으로서 경제 외교, 세일즈 외교를 적극 펼쳐왔습니다.
The European companies that committed investment to South Korea include auto parts, batteries, and wind turbine firms, while the MOUs signed in Vietnam include cooperation in rare earth materials and the space industry. South Korea attracted foreign investment of $16.5 billion in the first half of this year, the highest in history for the period. President Yoon said that success came down to more than just his sales diplomacy.
이 같은 대규모 투자 유치는 세일즈 외교, 또 한미 관계, 한일 관계 개선의 노력과 함께 규제를 대대적으로 풀어 기업이 필요로 하는 제도적 환경을 조성했기 때문에 가능한 일이라고 생각합니다.
President Yoon vows that the government will continue supporting businesses so they can operate as they wish. Also, saying the inflation and trade deficit situations have shown improvements despite the global economic crisis. President called on the cabinet to make sure South Koreans feel the economic improvements in the upcoming second half of the year. In the meantime, he also re-emphasized his motivation to host the 2030 World Expo in Busan. Looking back at his BIE presentation in Paris, he thanked those who were involved, including K-pop icon Psy and the chief architect Jin Yang-gyo. He also said the country is working on more than 1,200 official development assistance programs for the BIE member states, all catered to their needs. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
South Korea will create a global quantum platform, a physical and digital space to promote expert knowledge sharing to create economic value. That's according to President Yoon speaking at a dialogue among eminent quantum experts, including Nobel Prize winner John Francis Clauser and Imperial College London professor Kim Myung-sik. Yoon said the hybrid platform would enable research and development between quantum scientists and experts in the field of law, accounting, and business on a global scale. Considering the impact of quantum technology, the president stressed that the ethical principles and norms on digital technologies, which he declared last week in Paris, should be applied for the future of human freedom and welfare. In other news, China and Russia say that the inability to address North Korea's security concerns in a balanced manner is what's causing tensions on the Korean peninsula. Liu Xiaoming, the representative of the Chinese government on Korean Peninsula affairs, and Andrei Rudenko, Russia's deputy foreign minister, reportedly met on Monday in Beijing and held an in-depth discussion about the Korean Peninsula. The two noted that 7 years have passed since the armistice of the Korean War, but there hasn't been a transition from armistice to peace. They agreed that realizing denuclearization on the peninsula is in the common interest of the region and the international community, stressing the need for efforts by relevant parties to achieve lasting peace. Meanwhile, in North Korea, millions of people there are in dire need of humanitarian assistance. Experts say more efforts are needed to raise awareness of the issue and that the North needs to let international organizations help them provide food. Our Unification Ministry correspondent Kim Mo-gyun reports.
More than 10 million people living in North Korea are in need of humanitarian assistance. That's according to the Voice of America, citing the British Development Initiative's Global Humanitarian Assistance Report for the year 2023. The report says that as of last year, some 10,400,000 residents in the north are in need of external support, meaning North Korea ranks 14th on the list of countries with the most people in need. The regime has been listed along with Syria, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Afghanistan, and Venezuela as having more than 10 million people suffering from humanitarian crisis since 2019. It has also been classified by the UN Food and Agriculture Organization's IPC standards as being at level P3+. IPC stands for the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, a set of standards used to classify the severity and magnitude of food insecurity. Phase 3 means that some 20% of households are not consuming enough food and have high levels of malnutrition. North Korea has been consistently non-transparent regarding the level of humanitarian aid required there, despite the regime experiencing chronic food shortages over the past years. And for the situation to improve, experts say the North must allow international aid organizations to help, especially when it comes to providing food.
The outlook is rather bleak, and North Korea needs to both increase its revenue and imports from China, as well as to try to consider letting in humanitarian assistance by ensuring that humanitarian organizations are allowed to ensure that food goes to those who need it.
And in the case of the international community, Seoul's ambassador for North Korea's human rights says more efforts should be done to raise awareness of the dire human rights situation in the reclusive state so that the global community can find ways to provide more assistance for its people.
So for that, probably we international community and including the South Korea should raise the importance and the significance of why and how we can address the North Korean human rights abuses.
Kim Mo-kyun, Arirang News.
Though the exact location of Yevgeny Prigozhin is not currently known, a plane belonging to the leader of the Wagner group has reportedly landed at a military airfield near the Belarusian capital city of Minsk. The Belarusian president has ordered the army to prepare for full combat readiness. Our Arirang has more.
A jet-linked Russian mercenary chief, Yevgeny Prigozhin, reportedly arrived in Belarus from Russia on Tuesday. Citing flight tracking website FlightRadar24, Reuters said an Embraer Legacy 600 jet bearing identification codes that correspond with a plane linked to Prigozhin in U.S. sanctions documents landed at an altitude near Minsk, the capital city of Belarus. Ukrainian news agency Kyiv Post also reported that the jet landed near Minsk at around 7:40 a.m. local time. A former Putin ally and founder of the Wagner army and his men reached within 200 kilometers of Moscow on Saturday, but turned back after a deal came to an agreement with the help of Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko. Soon after, the Kremlin said Prigozhin will be leaving for Belarus, but his whereabouts remain unknown. Earlier on Monday local time, Prigozhin disclosed a voice message saying that the revolt was to save the Wagner group, not to remove Russian President Vladimir Putin and his government, but did not reveal his location. U.S. President Joe Biden said Monday that the West had nothing to do with the Wagner Group incident. He also noted that it was too early to tell how the incident will unfold going forward, but said the U.S. and its allies, including Ukraine, would be monitoring closely. Meanwhile, the Belarusian president ordered his army to be at full combat readiness following the Wagner Group's 24-hour mutiny in Russia.
We need to be stronger than the threat that casts a shadow over our land once again. That threat comes from the West once again. As you can see, history repeats itself.
He said via his Telegram channel that it was, quote, painful for him to watch what was going on in the south of Russia, adding that the priority of national security is to prevent the fallout of the situation as the anxiety had reached its peak. Lee Dae-hyun, Arirang News.
Rays of sunshine could be seen in the capital city here today as the monsoon briefly took a break. But elsewhere in the southern parts of the country, downpours continue. Our Lee Soo-jin has the weather update.
Temperatures are set to jump in South Korea in areas seeing respite from this season's monsoon rain. According to the Korea Meteorological Administration, central regions, including Seoul, will see a lull in downpours as the rain has moved south. Southern regions are currently experiencing rainfall of up to 10 millimeters per hour, accompanied by thunder and lightning. And rainfall of 200 millimeters or more is expected on Jeju Island, and at least 120 millimeters is predicted for Chungcheongdo provinces today. Precipitation in the south is forecasted to continue until Wednesday. Temperatures in areas where the rain has temporarily stopped will rise significantly during the day, with temperatures reaching 28 degrees Celsius in Seoul and 32 degrees in Daegu. Feels like temperatures will be even more, and it will feel uncomfortably muggy with the added humidity from all the rain. Heavy monsoon rain is expected nationwide again towards the end of the week. South Korea's monsoon typically lasts around a month and brings rainfall ranging from between 350 and 500 millimeters, around 1/3 of the country's annual rainfall. The amount of rainfall has surged in recent years, however, with the frequency of torrential downpours of 30 millimeters or more per hour increasing by more than 20% since the beginning of the 2000s. In addition, while in the past rainfall was mostly concentrated in the monsoon season, in recent summers there has been more rain after the end of the monsoon in August. This summer, the nation is expected to see even more precipitation after the monsoon season ends due to the effects of the El Niño weather pattern. The Korea Meteorological Administration said many areas may experience heavy downpours as late in the year as into the fall, and urged people in areas that are especially prone to flooding to continue to remain alert. Meanwhile, President Yoon during his cabinet meeting emphasized the importance of minimizing any casualties that may occur from flooding during the monsoon season. He also called on his cabinet to promptly issue flood warnings for vulnerable facilities and areas and to prepare quick evacuation routes. 이수진, 아리랑 뉴스.
South Korea's lunar orbiter Danuri will operate for 2 years longer than expected, as it used less power than was planned for on its journey to the moon. The Ministry of Science and ICT announced this on Tuesday, saying the orbiter will continue its mission until the end of 2025. It also explained that data obtained by the space vehicle will be used to create a 3D map of the moon that will help identify potential landing sites for future missions. The data will also be used to make a map detailing the elements and resources present on the lunar surface. Danuri, which has been orbiting the moon since last December, was originally scheduled to operate for just 12 months, until the end of this year. Now that it will operate for 2 more years, it will be tasked with taking more videos of the lunar surface. A robot now takes on a new challenge as it's about to debut as a conductor for the first time in Korea. Our Choi Soo-hyung went to a rehearsal and caught the moment of its unveiling.
Can a robot replace a conductor? It all begins with this simple question. On the National Orchestra of Korea, in association with the Korea Institute of Industrial Technology, will be looking to provide the answer when a conducting robot named EVA-6 leads an orchestra for the first time in South Korea on June 30th. Expectations were high at Monday's rehearsal, and as EVA-6 began its performance of Horse Thumb, composed by Mev Riva, all eyes were on whether the robot would function as a huge metronome or more like a real-life conductor. The highlight of the rehearsal was the performance of Kam, an improvisational piece between the human conductor Soo-yeol Choi and EVA-6, who both lead the orchestra together. Conductor Choi directed orchestra members to play music at the exact moment he believed to be right, while EVA-6 helped him to maintain the beat and rhythm.
This piece lets you experience the process of completion and interaction between performers and conductors. The actual notes are not crucial, but you can see the communication between them.
Conducting robots, such as Japan's Ashimo in 2008 and Switzerland's Yumi in 2017, have already astounded the music world, and the Institute has also devoted years of effort to developing the 6th version of its humanoid robot ever.
We focus on humanoid robots resembling humans to enable effective communication, as future robots aim to assist us in daily life. Conducting itself needs rapid light-speed gestures, prompting efforts to resolve this issue in response to the National Theatre's proposal.
According to the composer of Kam and the robot's co-conductor, EVA-6 is not actually conducting, despite its superior accuracy and rhythm compared to humans. They pointed out EVA-6's inability to listen as its major weakness.
I believe Ever 6 is more of a conductor performer than a conductor, as it guides and performs gestures, while the performers respond through listening, confirming, correcting, and interpreting the music to create their desired expression.
The question posed by Ever 6 about a future society where people coexist with robots is clear. It is possible for art to expand in a realm that was once considered exclusive to humans. 최수형, Arirang News.
Following the successful third launch of South Korea's homegrown Danuri rocket, another leading giant science project in the country is the construction of an ion beam that can travel at 1/5 the speed of light. Called the RAON project, researchers are on track to further their research in basic science. Our Ion has the details.
There are some 124 steel tunnels that run across roughly 100 meters. This is the scene of the South Korean-made heavy Ion Accelerator, RAON. With a government budget of 1.5 trillion won, that's roughly $1.14 billion, this 12-year Ion Accelerator project was built to produce a variety of stable and rare isotope beams. Testing for this homegrown heavy Ion Accelerator involves an argon beam passing through the acceleration zones of the tunnels. In May of this year, the project's team of researchers from the Institute of Basic Science successfully completed the test, where the argon beam passed through all of the acceleration tunnels. Each tunnel adds energy to the argon beam, and by the 124th tunnel, the beam was shown to reach a speed that's 19% of the speed of light.
We first need very cold, cryogenic systems to be followed by various high-frequency systems. This means that the overall integrated control system is fully operational.
The research team said that of the 124 tunnels, they found around 10 to be malfunctioning, and that they hope to improve the overall performance of the tunnels in the future. This also involves securing the stability and extending the operating time of the tunnels before activating them in actual further research. Following the successful beam test through a low-energy acceleration system, the research team hopes to complete the development for high-energy acceleration testing in the coming years. The next phase is expected to increase the speed of the beam to close to half the speed of light. The primary goal of this project is to create rare elements to unveil the secrets of stars from formation to evolution. But in addition, cooperation between researchers is expected to help develop existing materials like the rare isotopes that treat cancer, or create new materials that could be used to treat spent nuclear fuel. Ion, Arirang News.
Southern parts of the country will be under the influence of the monsoonal rain front until tomorrow. For Jeju Island, heavy downpours of up to 150 millimeters are expected. For parts of the south coast, up to 70 millimeters are in store. This round of monsoon rain will last until tomorrow dawn. Stifling heat will prevail again for the daytime. For Seoul, highs will peak at 30 degrees tomorrow. Other regions such as Gyeonggi will see more scorching conditions. The rise in temperatures will lead to unstable air, which will produce scattered outbreaks of rainfall for inland regions. And morning temperatures will be in the similar range tomorrow. Seoul and Busan will be starting off at 22 degrees Celsius. Highs in Seoul and Chuncheon will get up to 30, Daejeon 31, Busan will peak at 27 degrees. In between, Thursday and Friday, another round of monsoonal rain front will bring showers. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all for our tonight's newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back with the latest news tomorrow. Have a good night.
I'm live.
저를 도와주시는 분들이
저희와 함께 해주시는 세션분들.
아무리 봐도 이거 없지. 펜션 같은데 아니라고 아무도 안 하는 거고.